"Sir, this table is reserved. You'll need to wait at the bar." Have you ever walked into a room you paid for, sat down in a seat you earned, and still been made to feel like you wandered in through the wrong door? Elliot Crane had not even unfolded his napkin when the Maître appeared. The restaurant was called Ardmore, 51st floor of the Vantage Tower in downtown Chicago, with floor-to-ceiling glass that turned the city into something you felt entitled to look down on. The kind of place where the bread cost $12 and nobody questioned it. Reservations ran 6 weeks out. The waiting list was longer than some people's careers. Elliot had booked the table 3 weeks ago for a Thursday evening, the night before the board meeting that would determine whether his company, Crane Financial Systems, would finalize its acquisition of a smaller analytics firm headquartered 2 blocks away. He had chosen Ardmore because it was quiet, because the acoustics were good and the lighting was dim enough to think, not because he needed to impress anyone. He had stopped needing that about 15 years ago. He was 41, lean and unhurried, wearing a dark grey pullover, pressed dark pants, and a pair of clean leather sneakers that cost less than the entrees. No tie, no cufflinks, no assistant hovering nearby with a leather portfolio. Just a slim notebook, a pen he had carried for 9 years, and the quiet face of a man who had made a great deal of money by never looking like he had. The Maître d' was named Frederick Hollis. He was 44, narrow-shouldered, with silver-framed glasses, and the posture of someone who had spent years deciding who belonged where. He looked at Elliot the way certain people look at things that do not match their expectations. Not with open hostility, just with a particular kind of tightening around the eyes. "I have a reservation," Elliot said. 8 o'clock, Crane." Frederick's gaze moved briefly over the pullover, the sneakers, then back up. "I'll need to verify that," Frederick said. Not unkindly, but not kindly either. Elliot waited. He had learned to recognize the difference between a man double-checking a list and a man buying time to decide what to do with the answer. Frederick turned to the host stand and scrolled through the screen. His finger slowed. The reservation was there, had been there for 3 weeks under a corporate account confirmed twice. Table 12. Window seat. Best view in the house. Frederick looked up. His expression had not changed, but something behind it had shifted. A small recalculation, not an apology. A strategy. "Mr. Crane," he said, "I see your reservation. However, that table has been requested this evening by a party that dines with us frequently. We'd be happy to offer you our other available seating. Table 22 is a lovely option, near the. Table 12 is what I reserved," Elliot said. His voice did not rise. It was the same temperature it had been since he walked through the door. That steadiness was a thing he had cultivated, the way a surgeon cultivates steady hands. Not because he was naturally calm under pressure, but because he had learned that calm unsettles people in ways that volume never can. Frederick's jaw shifted. "Of course, but our valued guests, are you telling me," Elliot said, "that you would like me to give up a confirmed reservation to accommodate someone else's preference?" A couple near the entrance heard it. They did not look away quickly enough to pretend they hadn't. Frederick lowered his voice. "I'm saying we have some flexibility this evening, and we'd like to make your experience as comfortable as... Where is the other party seated currently?" Frederick paused. "They haven't arrived yet." Elliot looked at him for a moment. A long moment. The kind that makes people remember every decision they made in the past 10 minutes. "Then there's no conflict," Elliot said. "I'll go to my table." He stepped forward. Frederick did not move immediately. That half-second of hesitation was not lost on the hostess standing to his left, a young woman named Petra Nolan, 26, who had been listening while pretending to sort menus. Her eyes dropped to the reservation screen. She had already seen the booking. Table 12, 8 o'clock, confirmed. She had also seen who was scheduled at table 12 now. Her expression did not change, but her hands stilled. Frederick took a breath and led Elliot to table 12 without another word. The table was everything the reservation had promised. Corner window, city spread below, the kind of view that reminded you. The world was large, and you had found a good position in it. Elliot set his notebook on the white linen and sat down. A server appeared within 30 seconds. Water poured. Menu offered. The machinery of a fine restaurant, clicking into place the way it was designed to. He had been seated for 8 minutes when the woman arrived. Her name was Claudette Ashby. She was 58, with the confident carriage of someone who had never had to ask for things twice, or had arranged her life so that she never needed to. Pale champagne blazer, hair swept back, a single strand of diamonds at her throat that caught the light from the city below. She walked like the restaurant already belonged to her, and her expression confirmed that she believed it did. She was followed by a man Elliot recognized as the floor manager, whose name badge read Paul Brennan, 51, and who moved with the apologetic speed of someone trying to get ahead of a problem he had already decided not to solve correctly. Claudette stopped at table 12, looked at Elliot, then at Paul. "This is my table," she said, not to Elliot. To Paul. Paul stepped forward. "Mrs. Ashby, I sit here every Thursday." Her voice was pleasant but absolute, the voice of a woman who had been agreed with so many times that disagreement felt like a weather event. Unusual, temporary, someone else's job to fix. Paul leaned toward Elliot, voice low. "Mr. Crane, I want to apologize for any confusion. We have a very important guest who has a long-standing arrangement with this table. If you'd be willing to move to table 22, we can comp your appetizer and—" Elliot put his water glass down slowly. "I've been seated for 8 minutes," he said. "My reservation is confirmed. I'd like to understand what policy allows a restaurant to reseat a confirmed guest because another guest has a personal preference for the same table." Paul's mouth opened. He had no answer that wasn't also an admission. Claudette turned toward Elliot for the first time. Her eyes moved over him. The pullover, the notebook, the pen, the sneakers, with the efficiency of someone filing things in the wrong drawer and being satisfied with it. "I'm sure you're very comfortable here," she said, in a tone that suggested she was sure of nothing of the sort. "But I've been a patron of this restaurant for 11 years. I think that warrants a certain consideration." Elliot looked at her without expression. "Seniority isn't a reservation system," he said. A woman 2 tables over turned her head. Her dining companion, a man in a dark suit, kept his eyes forward but angled slightly toward the conversation. Claudette's smile thinned. "You could be gracious about this." "I could," Elliot said. "But gracefulness isn't the same as concession." Paul Brennan tried again. "Mr. Crane, table 22 has the same menu, same service, same view." Paul hesitated. "It's a very nice view. Is it this view?" Paul did not answer, because the answer was no, and they all knew it, and the fact that anyone was pretending otherwise had begun to cast a particular kind of light on the exchange that was unflattering to everyone standing, except Elliot. Claudette's voice dropped to a register designed for reproach. "I don't understand why this has to be so difficult." Elliot turned toward her, not hostile, not loud, settled, the way stone is settled. "I don't think it does," he said. "I think you walked in expecting something to happen and it hasn't happened, and the difficulty belongs to that gap." Claudette's composure flickered, just once, like a candle in a draught. Paul Brennan touched his earpiece. Whatever instruction was coming from the back of the house, he was receiving it now, and it had not resolved the situation. He looked between Claudette and Elliot with the expression of a man who had spent 20 years building a career on keeping wealthy people comfortable, and had only just discovered that 2 of them could be uncomfortable at the same time, in ways that cancelled each other out. "I'll need to speak with the general manager," Paul said finally. Claudette straightened. "Yes, please do." Elliot picked up his menu. The general manager of Ardmore was named Victor Sloan, 55. He came out from behind the kitchen corridor with the controlled walk of a man in a very expensive suit, who had resolved many conflicts by making one party feel chosen and the other party feel handled. He was good at this. He had done it for 30 years. Hotels, private clubs, and now this restaurant, which he had helped build from a concept into a reservation list that people mentioned at dinner parties they were trying to impress people at. Victor assessed the room quickly as he approached. Claudette Ashby, 11 years of Thursday dinners, corporate events, charity fundraisers. A woman whose name appeared on the donor wall of the Chicago Symphony 2 floors below this building. He knew exactly who she was. Then he looked at Elliot. Pullover, notebook, sneakers, a man who had ordered water. Victor made a decision before he reached the table. "Mr. Crane," he said, with the warm authority of someone delivering something unavoidable, "I want to personally thank you for your patience this evening. We have a somewhat unusual situation, and I want to make sure we take care of you properly. If you join us at table 22, I'll ensure that your meal tonight is entirely on the house." The room had grown quieter, not silent. Restaurants don't go silent, but the ambient noise of cutlery and conversation had acquired a new layer of attention. Elliot set his menu down. "You've just offered to give me something for free in exchange for giving up something I already paid for," he said. "Is that what Ardmore considers taking care of a guest?" Victor's practiced warmth held. "Barely. We value all of our guests, and in situations like this." "In situations like this," Elliot said, "a restaurant is asking one guest to relocate to accommodate another guest's preference. Not a booking conflict, not an error. A preference." Victor glanced at Claudette, a fast glance, almost involuntary. Claudette's expression had the fixed quality of someone who has decided that whatever happens next will be someone else's fault. "Mrs. Ashby," Victor said carefully, "has a long-standing—" "I understand that," Elliot said. "What I'm asking is whether a long-standing habit has become a standing right that supersedes a confirmed reservation." Victor did not answer, because answering honestly would mean saying yes. That is apparently how we operate, and he could not say that without also naming what it revealed. At a table near the window's edge, an older man named, as Elliot would later learn. Rupert Aldine had been listening without appearing to. Rupert was 71, retired federal judge, heavy gold watch, the kind of man who understood the architecture of arguments even when they arrived dressed as dinner conversation. He set his fork down slowly. His wife caught his eye. He shook his head once. "Not yet." Victor tried a different direction. "Perhaps if I could speak with you privately." "Why?" Elliot said. "Is there something about this situation that requires privacy?" Victor's composure held, but behind it something was sorting itself out. The man across from him did not look confused, or wounded, or eager for resolution. He looked like a man with somewhere to be who had decided not to go there until certain things were said in front of the right number of people. That bothered Victor more than any raised voice would have. Paul Brennan stepped closer and said, under his breath, "Mr. Sloan, there's a flag on his account." Victor turned. "What?" Paul showed him the screen. Victor read it. His expression did not collapse, it reorganized. Account category, corporate priority tier 1. Note from reservations, do not adjust without approval from senior management. Additional note, added 2 months prior. Strategic dining guest, Crane Financial Systems, active business discussion with venue ownership group. Victor looked up from the screen. He looked at Elliot differently now, not with fear. With the recalibration that comes when you realize you have been moving pieces on a board while someone else was watching the board from a higher floor. "Mr. Crane," Victor said, his voice slightly lower, "I wasn't aware of your full account status." "I know," Elliot said. "That's not the point." Victor blinked. "I beg your pardon?" Elliot looked at the notebook on the table, at the pen, at the view of the city outside, which was doing what city views at night do best, making everything below look small and orderly and manageable from a distance. "The point," Elliot said, is that none of what just happened should have required an account status to be resolved correctly. Nobody at the adjacent tables was pretending not to listen anymore. Claudette Ashby made a sound. Not quite a scoff, not quite a laugh. A social instrument, shaped like amusement. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding somewhere. Elliot turned to her. His voice was not warm, but it was not cruel either. It was exact. There was no misunderstanding about my reservation. There was no misunderstanding about which table was mine. There was no misunderstanding when you said I should be more gracious. He paused. What I'm still waiting to understand is at what point gracefulness became my responsibility and accuracy became yours. The older woman at Rupert Aldine's table pressed her lips together. Her husband reached for his wineglass and did not drink from it. Claudette's chin lifted. I don't think you need to be rude. I haven't been rude, Elliot said. I've been precise. The two feel different depending on which side of the accuracy you're on. Paul Brennan had gone very still beside the host stand. Petra Nolan, the hostess, had found reasons to remain near the entrance rather than retreating to the back. She had watched everything. Her face held the look of someone who had known the right answer 20 minutes ago and was only now seeing it find its way to the surface. Victor Sloan put both hands on the edge of the nearby service stand, not gripping it, just resting there, as if steadying himself against something he had not expected to need to steady himself against. Mr. Crane, Victor said, perhaps I can explain. You don't need to explain, Elliot said. I need you to acknowledge. The room seemed to contract around the word. Victor looked at him. Acknowledge, Elliot continued, that a confirmed reservation was subordinated to an unconfirmed preference, that the subordination was offered in a direction chosen by someone who assessed the situation before asking any questions. He picked up his pen. I'm not asking for an apology tonight. I'm asking you to understand what you did and to say that you understand it. Victor's jaw worked. 30 years in hospitality, 30 years of handling situations. He had always understood that the job was to make people feel something that made them want to come back. Tonight, he had been so certain he knew which person that was. He had been wrong in a way that was not complicated and not ambiguous, and was witnessed by roughly 14 people with clear sightlines and functioning ears. You're right, Victor said. The reservation was yours. We should have honored it without question. Claudette's expression shifted. Victor. Victor looked at her, not unkindly, but clearly. Mrs. Ashby, I've been taking care of your Thursdays for 11 years. You know I respect your patronage. But Mr. Crane had a confirmed booking, and we should not have asked him to move. I apologize to him, and I owe you the truth, which is that this was not a situation where the restaurant was in the right. The silence that followed had a different quality than the silences before it. Not the silence of people waiting to see who wins. The silence of people recognizing what they have just watched. Claudette put her hand on her handbag. Her composure was intact but thinner now. I see. Elliot did not react with satisfaction. He did not lean back or exhale or allow any visible sense of victory. His face remained what it had been since the beginning, composed and certain and waiting for the right things to be said. Rupert Aldine, at the adjacent table, spoke for the first time. Heard every word, he said, not loudly, directed at no one in particular. For what it's worth. His wife nodded once. Claudette gathered herself and asked to be moved to a different table. She said it was because she preferred not to be near the kitchen noise. Paul Brennan nodded and escorted her without comment. He knew that was not the reason, so did everyone else. The fiction was the only grace she allowed herself in leaving. Victor Sloan remained near table 12 for a moment. I'd like to make this right, he said to Elliot. Elliot looked at him. Then understand that making it right isn't the same as making it disappear. Victor absorbed that. He nodded once, slowly, and stepped back toward the kitchen corridor. Elliot opened his notebook. He had a page of acquisition notes that needed reading before tomorrow's board meeting. Numbers, projections, market data about a firm that was smaller than his, but building something elegant. The kind of numbers that told a story if you knew how to read them. And Elliot had spent 20 years learning how. He did not look up when a couple near the window began speaking again. Did not look up when the man in the dark suit caught his wife's eye and said something low that made her nod. Did not look up when Petra Nolan, from the entrance, quietly said to a colleague behind the host stand that she had known the reservation was correct from the beginning, and her colleague said nothing, and Petra did not say anything else, because some things settle into a place without needing to be argued into it. Elliot's phone lit on the table beside his notebook, a message from his chief of operations. Board packet updated. Also, saw the Ardmore booking. Everything okay, he replied with one word. Fine, then a second message arrived. From his attorney, Josephine Wu. Word just reached me. Your account flag triggered a review request to the venue ownership group. They may reach out tonight. Elliot looked at the message, then at the city below, which was doing what it always did, carrying on, indifferent to the particular weight of individual moments unless those moments accumulated into something it could not ignore. He put the phone face down on the linen. The server returned. Are you ready to order, sir? I am, Elliot said. He ordered the halibut, a glass of the burgundy he had been thinking about since he sat down. Bread when it came. He ate at a pace that suited him, in the seat he had reserved, with the view he had chosen, in the city that had watched him build something large from nothing, in a restaurant that had nearly decided, on a Thursday evening, that he did not belong at the table where he had already placed his pen. 40 minutes after Elliot finished his entree and was working through a short espresso, Victor Sloane returned to the table. He carried nothing. He stood at the edge of the tablecloth and said quietly that the ownership group had called, that they had reviewed the account notes, that they had also reviewed the staff records for the evening, including a statement from Petra Nolan, who had documented the sequence of events beginning from the moment. Elliot checked in at the host stand. Paul Brennan had been placed on formal review, Victor said. Not suspension. Review. Elliot looked at him. Is that what you came to tell me? He said. Victor paused. I came to tell you that we take what happened tonight seriously. Do you know why I didn't move? Elliot said. Victor waited. Not because of the account flag. Not because of the ownership group. Not because I was going to make phone calls. Elliot looked toward the window. Because the table was mine. Because the reservation existed. Because neither of those things changed depending on what I looked like when I walked through the door. Victor said nothing. He had been in hospitality long enough to recognize that some statements don't need a response. They need to be heard. He nodded once and walked back toward the kitchen corridor. At the table near the window's edge, Rupert Aldine signed his bill and stood slowly, the way men who have spent decades standing in courtrooms learn to stand, unhurried, without drama, with the full weight of what they have witnessed carried quietly in the set of their shoulders. He stopped at the edge of table 12 on his way to the coat check. You handled that with more patience than most would have, he said to Elliot. Elliot looked up. Patience isn't the same as acceptance. Rupert nodded. No, he said, it isn't. And then he walked on. The restaurant filled and thinned and filled again in the way that restaurants do on Thursday evenings, in cities where people have places to be. Elliot stayed until the espresso was gone and the last of his notes were made. He closed the notebook, capped the pen, left a tip that reflected exactly what the service had been worth in the hour, since things had corrected themselves, which was considerable. He stood and put on his jacket. The hostess, Petra, was still at the stand. When he passed, she met his eyes for a moment and nodded. He returned it. Outside, the elevator descended to the lobby and Elliot walked through the glass doors into the Chicago night, which was cool and indifferent and enormous and exactly what it was regardless of who was standing in it. Somewhere above him, at a window table on the 51st floor, a city fell away in every direction, belonging to no one, visible to everyone who chose to look. He had looked. He had stayed. He had not moved. That was the whole of it.